Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is remove toxic people from your life. Motivational speaker Jim Rohn said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." Take a minute and really think about who you spend the most time with. At some point, you decided to start a business to be in control of your financial freedom. As you start to make changes and improve your life, you may quickly realize the people you were once close to can become your biggest obstacles. Some may even witness your prosperity increase and make you feel bad for achieving something they don't have the courage to do. If you truly want to grow, you must make the difficult decision to remove the toxic people in your life. Sometimes those people can be best friends, family, even a spouse. Your success is up to you, not them. When you start spending more time with others that lift you higher instead of tearing you down, you will find your business growing at an accelerated rate. By creating a supportive tribe of friends, they will not only applaud your efforts, but challenge you to do even more. So, double check who you keep close and distance yourself from negativity if you want to become the best badass you can be. Now on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us Drew Breneman. Drew began his real estate career at just 19 years old when he bought his first 2 rental properties. At that early age, he learned real estate was the best method to generate cash flow and build wealth long-term when he was looking at how to invest his own money. He has since dedicated his career to building an organization that makes investing in high-quality real estate opportunities available to passive investors. He earned his Bachelor of Business Administration in Real Estate and Urban Land Economics from the Wisconsin School of Business at UW-Madison, one of the best real estate programs in the country. I love to geek out over some multifamily investing, so let's get this party started. Welcome to the show, Drew Breneman.
All right. Thanks for having me, Jen. Appreciate it.
You know, you've come a long way since that 90-second shot with your moped back on HGTV a few years ago. So I am excited to have you on here. You have some really great concepts behind multifamily and investing in multifamily, which I love, love, love. But first, let's start with you. Where did you get involved in real estate at 19?
Yeah, maybe some would say that's when I peaked in that HGTV appearance. So it's been all downhill from there. So no, I'm just kidding. But that is that's something I just fell into, the HGTV thing where I started an internet business in high school where my friends were all playing this video game called Diablo 2, and then there were some other games that were similar. And they sold their stuff in the game for real money, where I didn't play the game, but I just saw them where they'd build a character, then they could sell it for, 20 or 30 bucks, or the items they acquired, they could sell. So I saw things selling on eBay it was really inefficient. Sometimes the same thing would sell for $10, sometimes for 20 or 30. So I decided, why don't I just invest 20 bucks and buy a couple things, see if I can resell them for more. And I did. It went really well. And then I just literally repeated that thousands of times. So I would come home from...
And you were 14? Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, I would have started that when I was 14 or 15, so freshman year of high school, sophomore year. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I always liked wheeling and dealing. Before that, I was trying to always sell stuff to my younger sister, or I did some kind of concert for my parents, just in the basement. And of course, I needed to charge admission. You don't want to
Of course.
perform for free to your parents there. and then it wasn't a lot. It's probably like a quarter or something. But it's that's kind of was just always into like wheeling and dealing. And so, that was the first time where I started making any real money. Before that, I did kids parties. I did magic, like magic tricks and balloon animals. Yeah, but I charged like $50 a party, and then they tip you, so they give you $60. Where you don't make a lot if that's your whole week. You get one show on a Saturday or something. But yeah, the internet business was great, because then I did that for about 4 years, and I'm making $5 to $10 a transaction, but I did thousands, and by the end of that time period, I had $80,000 to $100,000 saved up.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, as I was accumulating the money, I started reading about probably most of the stuff people would read about when they're like 40 normally. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, where I know that's everybody's big aha moment, where they're working a job, and it's kind of like the light bulb goes off. I didn't even have a job yet. I was still in high school when I read that, and it helped kind of formulate like, yeah, this business is going well. But it's just, this is essentially like a one person business. There's other things out there like investments and like whatever the other quadrant was, a real business where you're getting operating leverage from other people working in it. So that did lay a good foundation. And then I read other books on investing that everybody recommends, like Intelligent Investor. And I was reading Investing in Real Estate by Gary Eldred, and the light bulb really went off reading that book for me with real estate investing. I still remember it. I was sitting outside at our house reading a book on this like swing that we had outside on our deck. And he had this real simple breakdown on how you would make money in these deals, from cash flow, from paying the loan down, and then the appreciation and the tax breaks. Some of the stuff I didn't really get, he's describing how the tax breaks work and different things, but it was the appreciation one, the light bulb really went off, because he had such a simple example where it was buying a duplex. And I'm reading this in like 2002 or 3. And so, between then and, whenever he started in real estate, homes had gone up like 3 or 4% every year, basically. Wow. And so he said, on average, my stuff's gone up 3% a year. If you put down 10% on a duplex, that would be a 30% return on your equity just on that one piece.
Well, I got to stop you here for a second here, because you mentioned Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where the poor parents were both school teachers, correct? Or was it one? And both your parents are school teachers.
Yeah, I think his parents were like a government worker of some kind, Robert Kiyosaki's. But I mean, that I read, this is going on 20 years ago now. I read that book.
It's been a hot minute.
But yeah, both my parents were teachers. So, I mean, that's probably worth noting where, right, I didn't have anything to sort of step into from, there wasn't no one in my family had ever invested in real estate, whether as far up the family tree as you go.
But what really stuck out to me is that you kept the $80,000. Like, you are here in high school, 14, 15, 16, 17, and you just put that money away. And that is the craziest part to me, is that you had that money and then you took that 80,000 and you invested in a duplex, which then projected you to get on HGTV. So tell me that story. How did that come about?
Yeah. And what's funny too, with the, sort of this delayed gratification and whatnot with the money, I'm still doing the same thing. I've got a lot more property now, but I'm still like pressing the gas pedal on it. I had more money come in. Now I'm hiring employees to get more deals and help, obtain investors. And so that's always been how I've been wired. My parents, they were both big savers, and just being teachers, where you're not used to spending a lot of money, or you go on a trip, like we would drive there. When as a kid, I only flew once. We went to Disney World, I think, and then everything else was driving. Right. And I mean, they were fun trips. As a kid, it was camping and whatnot, going to a cabin. But anyways, yeah, Home and Garden Channel, I got on that because they went to like the local Keller Williams office. And like you mentioned, I was in Madison, Wisconsin, and I'm from Wisconsin, from the Milwaukee area. And they they asked the realtors like, hey, you guys got any interesting clients? We're going to do a show where we want to show different price points in different cities across the country. And the duplex I bought was 220,000. And they're going to have a $250,000 house, a 500,000, 750, a million. It was an interesting show because when you get to like, they also had LA, Los Angeles in it. And it was, you for 250 in LA, you didn't really get anything. It was, like a studio in a rough neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
So I was the $250,000 house on HGTV, and I'm not really like super promotional, and I was going to say no, but my parents were like, this sounds like a good idea. You should just do it. Like, how hard could it be? So I did it. And it's kind of funny where it's the only time I've done anything for TV. And, you like shoot all day, where you're doing all this like stuff where you're, okay, now walk into the house. And then, you walk into it. All right, walk a little faster this time. Okay, now go slower.
Oh my goodness.
And then walk into your dorm room, throw your backpack down. And then it's like, you do that all day. And then it's funny because then it's like 60 to 90 second spot where just a lot of like you talking and then like just B-roll of like the random stuff you're doing like that day you're shooting. So, but yeah, it was funny because at that time I didn't even own a car yet. I had my duplex, but in Madison there's no parking. So like if you want to get around and be able to park, you'd buy a moped because you could park it with the bikes. So
well, you were rocking the moped.
Yeah.
And I laugh because I work with Tarek El Moussa, who films for HGTV, and we just like quickly talking about it. And I have so many friends that are like, Jen, when you get your own show? I'm like, hey, oh no, I don't ever want people exactly in that situation. I got into real estate to become my own boss. So I wouldn't have people saying, okay, now walk into your dorm room a little faster. Now throw your backpack down and do all that stuff. So thank you for justifying my rationale behind this. But you have come a long way since your 90-second little clip there on HGTV. And you now own Breneman Capital. So, and you just focus on multifamily, which I love. That's what I'm personally focused on right now. But tell me how Breneman Capital is designed differently than, say, other institutions of similar.
Yeah. So really what kind of between, let's say when I was at Madison and today, I bought 4 properties when I was at Madison, and then I had partnered up with a couple families along the way and had bought properties really just in whatever market we were living in. For a while, I was living in the Twin Cities up in Minnesota and been living in Chicago for the last 10 years. So been just really only buying deals in that market. And we were buying all product types, from retail to office to industrial to multifamily. All the deals went well. We like on average on anything we sold, we have a 25% plus IRR. And then on the multifamily deals, our strategy was buy, raise the rents, refinance out all the money. And on 13 deals in a row, we did that. We were able to find undervalued deals, raise the rents enough, or renovate it, and then pull out all of our money. And so those deals, kind of what I learned doing all that is the more specialized you get, the better you are at investing. So if you think about like real estate, when we started really getting good at, let's say, what we were doing ourselves, we're focused on just a couple neighborhoods in Chicago on just apartments. And so one thing that Breneman Capital's done is we're really specializing now in just one product type in a few markets. So since in 2020, 2021, I reevaluated where we're investing. So I'm not buying really many deals in Chicago now. I've lived in the Midwest my whole life. But when you look at it, we had good deals that we did, but you could have probably bought anything in the Sun Belt. So, Arizona, Texas, Florida, and done just as well, or where you're at, Raleigh, that's booming. Yep. So like that's what we want to have the focus on now. So we are just focused only on buying a couple types of multifamily deals in Phoenix, Dallas, and Austin. In the last year and a half, we bought 5 deals in Phoenix. And like our typical deal is $5 million to $50 million. Cool. And we focus on 2 types. The fancy terms for them are value add and core plus. And so like a core plus deal, that's just saying it's like a newer property where there's some hair on it, so to speak. So you either need to do a small renovation to it, like nothing crazy, like switching out appliances or or the rents are just way below market, or maybe you're buying at a discount for some reason. Because like 3 of the deals I did in 2020, we bought newer buildings, like they were all 5 years old, excuse me, or less, but we had to assume their loans. A developer built them, then they put on a loan at like 4.5% interest. And at the time, that was really unattractive to any buyer because it was a Fannie Mae loan. So if you didn't want to use Fannie Mae, then you were like, I don't want to bother with the hassle. And then the rates were really high. They were 4.5% interest probably on average across those 3 deals.
And we'd kill for 4.5% interest right now.
I know. So it's funny because that now if you had a loan assumption like that, it would sell for a premium. But because in these larger deals too, maybe if people listening they're doing mostly like single families or duplexes or something. In these commercial deals, there's always a prepayment penalty. And the most common one is something called yield maintenance. And so like oftentimes, essentially how it works is you need to maintain the lender's yield. So let's say interest rates dropped 1% and you got 10 years left to go on your loan. I mean, just to oversimplify it, you're going to need to pay them, 10% minus like the risk-free rate to get out of it. So it's not, it's very expensive. So on the deals we assumed it would have been like a multi-million-dollar prepay for these guys to get out of it. So they had to sell to someone who would assume the loan. And so we offered a number that worked for us on all those, and we were able to take them down. And so none of those deals required any construction. And then for the value add ones, that's kind of your typical buying a building, maybe a little older, built in like the 1980s, and you're going to need to renovate it. We're doing one now in Mesa, Arizona, that we bought 96 units, bought it for $26 million, but we need to renovate every unit and put another $3 million into it and do the whole exterior, paint it, new landscaping, redo the pool, redo the clubhouse. We're adding a gym, adding laundry in every unit. So it's like, those deals are a lot more time intense, a lot more work, bigger, more risk on them. But the returns are higher if you can find them.
Man, I love geeking out, and you just did some serious geeking out on that. So I appreciate that. So these ones that were newer, because you like focusing on the newer, better quality properties, and you were taking over can you just break that down a little? Because that was such a great nugget, but you just went over it a little too fast. So let's back that one up, because I need to hear more about this.
Yeah, on the loan assumptions, or which one?
The loan assumptions. So but the builder has this percentage rate, and then there's a penalty if they get out early now that the percentage rate has dropped. So it would cost them a lot to get out of it unless someone comes in and assumes that loan. So can you, or exactly. Did I just, is it literally that easy?
It's basically that simple where, so the commercial loans, there's a fee to get out of them, a prepayment penalty. Sometimes it's just like a flat fee per year, like 1% of the loan. So, but these were all yield maintenance prepayment penalties, which work how you're saying, where you take out a 10-year loan, and then as the builder, when you're done, and then you realize 2 years later, I want to sell, you have 8 more years of term left on that loan. You can't pay it off unless you pay this huge fee. So then your options are, like, all these commercial loans are, for the most part, assumable. Loans from banks usually aren't, but then all these non-recourse ones, like from Fannie, Freddie, HUD, they all are. And these were all Fannie conventional loans. So then, it worked just how you said. The only way they can sell without paying that huge penalty is someone assume it. And then those loans were assumable with a 1% assumption fee. So then they sold them at a discount, if you will, because they separately, they were all off market. So there was either no broker involved, or the broker was taking a highly reduced fee because they said, hey, I want to sell these. Who do you know that would deal with this? And then they sent them to me. So then the broker like literally sent these deals to like 1 or 2 people. So then they take a lower fee, and then they're not paying any fee to sell now in terms of paying off their loan, because it's not being paid off. We're stepping into the shoes of the owner.
Wow. Very good stuff there, Drew. Thank you for that. How, though, did you get involved with these huge deals? Because you say between $5 million up to $50 million, you just bought a property that's $26 million. And I mean, I just bought a tiny property that's 12 units, and I want to know how to scale to get to those larger deals. So how did you first start?
Yeah, well, it's just been like baby stepping up in
Okay.
deal size where there's been a couple like larger jumps, but like the first deal I bought was 220,000, the next one was 350, then 750, then 670, and then I had a big jump up to 2.625 million.
All right, let's stop there. How did you finance that big one, the first 2
Yeah.
million, 2.6?
And that was probably the biggest like we'll call it break. I mean, I made the break happen in my opinion, but like that I probably had where the first 4 deals I just rattled off, I bought those with my own money was the down payment. And that was where I bought 4 deals when I was in Madison as a student. Then I had invested all my money. I went and I got a job at a developer. I wanted to learn. I figured don't just like you invested your money, now time to learn what like the bigger fish are doing, let's say. And one of the coworkers, I had an intern there. He had saw what I was doing on my own, just buying those 4 deals, talking about doing more. And he's like, we should go meet with my dad. I think he'd probably want to invest in some stuff. But I had no idea what they'd want to invest in. Again, my parents are teachers, so I'm printing out deals that are 200 grand on up to 5 million. I have no clue what they would want to buy. And they really liked the deal in that meeting. That was $3 million. And so we ended up buying it, getting the price down to 2,625,000. Bought it back in 2009, same day Barack Obama was inaugurated. That's
Yay!
Easy.
That was not
easy to remember. Whatever you think of him, it's all good. I
love him, and I watched it in Chicago. Well, I watched it on TV, Chicago, so I remember that day very well. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. So it was a memorable, obviously.
Love it.
You got a new president coming in and you're closing this deal that's 3 times bigger than you've ever done before. And really how I was able to do that is I took on partners where, I think one thing that, especially if you're starting out in real estate, I wouldn't shy away from partnering with people. I think one tip I have is I think partnering, like it might not make sense to have the same partners forever, like the rest of your life. So I think it's okay. And I'd even recommend people, if you partner up, maybe talk about how long it would make sense to do it on the front end. Like we should work together for 2 or 3 years. Because let's say I'm still working with this family, but potentially if they wanted to do deals on their own, they would have saw how I did it and figured out, hey, after 5 years, it makes sense. We'll just do our own thing. And then maybe vice versa for me. I'll have more other investors and I'd want to not be just purely exclusive on sending every deal to you guys. But we've worked together now for this going on for almost 13, 14 years. But anyways, so that was partnering where the father put in the down payment and then we didn't charge any fees or anything, but we got a share of the profits for putting the deal together and running it.
Great. And this leads me to my next question here, talking about partnerships, because you have general partnerships, which would be this father being a general partner here, with which we just call GPs. And then you have LPs, which are limited partners. And I see here in one of your notes, the biggest mistake you see limited partners making. So explain a little bit more about partnership and I'll back up just a second here. I have been flipping single family homes for 6 years now, and I do not like partnering with anyone just because I feel like, why share my profit with someone? I have to personally change my mindset to the larger picture here, where I need to start working more with partners. And so first I got to find a general partner. First I got to find limited partners. Tell me what I do and tell me what those roles are.
Yeah, I mean, you described it well in terms of who does what. I think, and what you're talking about, though, you would be the general partner. You're doing the work. And then the investors that you find, those would be your limited partners.
So the dad, so was the dad considered a limited partner then?
Really, how we were doing it is I viewed that the stuff we were doing together, no one was calling each other the GP or the LP. Gotcha. He was providing all the money like an LP would. But he also had construction experience. His company was a construction company. So it wasn't like he just wrote a check and did nothing, where he invested the money. And then, if we had a construction question, even now he's the guy. And nice. So it's not, but to answer your question, normally what that would look like is, the son and I would be the GPs. And then the father would be saying, hey, I have enough money. I want to be hanging out on my boat. So here's a check. don't bother me. Just send me my distributions. And that's normally what it looks like. And in terms of mistakes that I see LPs making because they're not active in the investment and seeing all the risks, let's say typically, I think a lot of them they don't see the difference, let's say in the deals you were just talking about, in the different risk profile with buying maybe a cash flowing stabilized duplex compared to buying the renovation deal you're talking about, like a house flip. So they would say, oh, this house flip, I can make a little bit extra, a couple percent more. I'll do that one. But the risk on a house flip is way higher than buying a stabilized property.
Right.
And a lot of times that's missed by the LPs. And in my case, what's, what that would look like is I can raise money a lot easier for those value add deals that require renovation and buying an older building and probably moving everybody out of the building and re-renting it and then having to refinance your loan in a couple of years because you got a bridge loan to start, where we raise money for those better because the returns are higher, but the risk is a lot higher. And what's interesting, if it was just all my money, I would just do buy the stabilized deals, take a little bit lower return, but my risk is so much lower. So that's usually what, if like I'm talking to a newer passive investor or even experienced ones, I ask them if they've ever thought about that. And oftentimes they haven't. And a lot of people that are in these renovation deals now, they saw their bridge loan interest rates go up with the Fed raising rates because the underlying index those are based on is SOFR, which is basically correlated exactly with the Fed funds. And then construction costs have gone up, rents have flattened. So like now your distributions are paused and you're wondering what's next. Are we going to need to add money? Whereas anyone who invested in the stabilized deal, it's been cash flowing this whole time because you put a permanent loan on it. And maybe your rent's flattened out. So your distributions could be a little lower, but you're not at risk of, having your return much smaller where you would be on the renovation deal.
So limited partners have less risk by investing in a newer building, parking your money there, but they're making a little bit less, but the weight balances it out. What is a typical percentage rate that a limited partner would receive?
Yeah, I think what's most common on the larger deals, let's say that I'm working on today, most of the limited partners, I'd say it's most common to see a total return of a 13 to 15% IRR on a value add, this is a renovation deal.
Okay.
So, and usually on a value add deal, there's not much cash flow because you're repositioning the property. So most of that return comes on sale.
Right.
So it's, like a 3 to 5 year hold type thing. And then, on a stabilized deal, that's going to be on a core plus kind of thing. It's going to be, I'd say 10 to 13% would be the range for a limited partner return. So you're taking less, but the thing is, if you went in your retirement calculator or whatever and just typed in, hey, I'm going to make 10% a year till I'm 70, you'd have a lot of money. You don't need to, in my opinion, take on the extra risk and go, I need to make 15. And the thing is, because when times are, tough, you're not going to make your 15 anymore. When times were amazing, I mean, I saw some of these value add deals make 50% in a year, 100%, because they, you bought them and your cap rate dropped, your rents exploded up. I mean, that happened to everybody in Phoenix and in Texas and in Florida. And I'm sure a lot of deals in Raleigh too, actually, these bigger ones where they just, the valuation metrics all changed because the rents were growing fast and interest rates were in the threes. But anyways, that, that's was a small time window where that happened. And, I think people, they need to think about the risks where, it's, you're right. You're getting a couple percent more, but you're taking on, I don't know what it would be if you measure the risk 3 times as much risk and you're getting, 25% more in return. It's not necessarily just like a no brainer to me where most all LPs are like, I'll just take the value add deal. I don't need to hear about this 10% deal.
Agreed.
It's surprising because the other investors that I know that are investing just their own money, or let's say it's like a second or third generation family, they only buy those safer deals. There's no reason to take such a risk. They're already so far ahead. We'll just keep building this portfolio with nice assets and not needing to over risk.
And
so
for the listeners out there, I have a good friend who I actually introduced into private money lending 6 years ago when we first started. They were our very first private money lenders. And since then, they took us out to dinner a month ago and to celebrate their 50th transaction, which is crazy. So we did the first one with them 6 years ago, but they love the chase of finding the deal and parking it in these shorter deals for these, individually, family house flips, et cetera, or single family home flips, excuse me. But for me personally, I'd rather just park it somewhere and have that money come in. So how often do you pay limited partners? I know it's different on every single deal, but what is kind of a standard?
Monthly is what we're doing. And then we do quarterly reporting, and it doesn't change really, the distributions month to month. Like usually what we do, like the mechanics of it, we make a budget for the next upcoming 12 months where it's just rolling every 12 months as budget that we have in Excel. And then we're making our distributions based on that. If something really changed in a big way, we'd update it up or down. But because then it's a lot of work. I'm in right around 30 different buildings in terms of deals that I own or I'm running, and so it's a lot of work to do that. But it's I agree with what you're saying in terms of like thinking long term, making money that way. Because one thing I love telling this story, because it's just like such a powerful thing about long term investing. If you think about like these families that made a lot of money buying property in New York or in Chicago or wherever, they bought really prime properties and they sat on them for decades. So I think, adapting a strategy that's more similar to that makes a lot of sense. And like one anecdote I like to talk about is this. I think the third deal I bought in Chicago, I bought from a guy whose dad bought like 50 duplexes in the Lincoln Park neighborhood, like in the 70s. And if anyone knows Chicago, that's a neighborhood now where a duplex is $1 million. And in the 1970s, they were like 30 grand. So I don't know what his return is on that. What's his IRR or whatever. And he probably could have sold them for a nice profit in, 1975 and put up like a high return. And, if LinkedIn was around back then, he could have bragged on LinkedIn. Look at how high my returns are. But, he kept them. He still owns them. And, this is, if those things are throwing off insane cash flow, I'm sure. But even if they weren't, just doing basic math, you got 50 of them. They could probably worth $1 million on average. He did pretty well, with just the equity part, not even including cash flow.
Absolutely. Wow.
So I try to, and I've done kind of a similar strategy where we're not flipping in and out of deals. That first deal and a lot of those early ones I was talking about that I bought with that family, we still own them. Like, so we're now in like year 14 of owning that deal. And it's performed well. We've already actually on that deal 4x our money without even selling it. So there's like, what's the point of selling it unless we think the asset is like not going to perform well. Then compared to something else, then we'd sell it and do a 1031 exchange into something bigger. We're trying not to take our chips off the table over and over again and have to redeploy it.
Well, I'm older than you, but I want to be you when I grow up. I want to have some of your badassery, and I just appreciate you sharing all these different nuggets and everything. And I want to give a quick shout out though to the Breneman Blueprint, because you have a podcast as well. Tell us about your podcast.
Yeah. So I wanted, I didn't, I don't want to say this, I never had like a official, like a long-term mentor or any, like, haven't done like a boot camp or anything, and I really learned for the most part, just kind of by observing others. I did have a mentor through the ULI, the Urban Land Institute for a couple years in Chicago, and he was awesome. So I don't want to say I never had a mentor, I guess, but it was more, just learning by observing people, like I think I'd said when we started where I'm at, we have 200 million of property now, but I reached out to someone who has 2 billion of property, who's actually like a similar age to me. And I was like, hey, what are you doing? How did you set this up? Cause then he's done the work to go to like the next level, but there's no, so a lot of that stuff I've learned, if it's not just reaching out to someone and trying to get them out to lunch or on a quick phone call, it's through podcasts. And I wanted to, kind of try my hand at it as well. With my parents were teachers. So I thought worst case, I just, teach people a bunch of stuff. And some of it I don't think is that complicated, too. So I wanted to, I've had a bunch of episodes about that where like doing your first deal. My first deal episode is probably almost too simple where, it's like, you need to learn for a couple months, then you just need to go do a deal,
Yes.
you need to get going, you need to take action. And so yeah, Breneman Blueprint. We put out an episode every Wednesday. We're at like 50 something episodes, and
Nice.
yeah, for active and passive investors. We're have like a good mix of, guests that are lenders doing $1 billion of lending a year on up to, people who are just, they're buying, rental houses, try to mix it up. And then also, stuff for passive investors too, like what red flags to look for if you're an investor. Did an episode on that. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that. It's been fun. It's a lot of work doing these podcasts. So.
It is a lot of work, especially when your internet goes in and out, as we just discovered here. So you all the listeners out there, make sure you check out Breneman Blueprint and check out some of those episodes. So you heard me at the beginning say a badassery bestowment. Do you have a little nugget that you can share with the audience?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think, probably, I think starting out, like, I think was kind of what I had just said, like where I think I'd rather just drill down in on that, where I think people starting out, a lot of them, they ask like, wow, how did you get started at 19? And I mean, what I tell them is like, I had the money and I wanted to do it. So I did it. Like there's not more to it. Like I read a couple books on it and then I just got going. So, I mean, my nugget would be like, a lot of this stuff is your mindset, and like, don't overthink it.
Right.
I never thought that I couldn't do it. The thing you had done at the beginning of the episode about potentially needing to trade out your some of your friends.
Yes.
Yeah. How it's interesting where, whether, and they might be toxic because they have a lot of limiting beliefs and they put that on you, where one thing that was nice with my parents, I will say, is they never were like, oh yeah, you for sure can do this. But they never told me like I couldn't. They were more just sort of like, all right, yeah, go for it. And kind of almost like skeptical, like, yeah, that sounds all right, like buying this, but they never were like, oh, cool, I'll throw 50 grand in, or like were like pushing me to do it. But they're definitely not, they were encouraging, but they weren't feeding me like bad things in my ear either, which I see, a fair amount of parents do that, where, they might have been interested in real estate and they're telling them, no, you need to be a doctor or something.
Yeah, I can remember my mom saying, why would you quit a perfectly good job to do real estate? And I'm like, because I can make 10 times more money doing this, and I'm in control of my own financial freedom. So I think that's a great point. Did you have something else to add to that?
I mean, not really. I mean, I think that's the most important thing, is just taking action and really focusing on your mindset.
Taking action, people. If you are listening and you're hemming and hawing over that deal that you've been looking at, stalking for the last 2 or 3 months, the worst thing that they can do is say no. So just go out and take some action and go for it. I think that's really, really good. So the second part of the podcast here is what makes Drew a badass. And I use the acronym BADASS. The first one is B for book. What is a book that made a huge difference in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I already had talked about, Rich Dad Poor Dad and Investing in Real Estate by Gary Eldred. So those, if you're kind of like just getting started, I mean, that's where I'd recommend going. But in terms of like a book to mention, I think Good to Great by Jim Collins had a really big impact on my career, kind of once I was already going, where I read that book or listened to it like 10 years ago. And there's a lot of really good messages in that on how these companies that have been highly successful, how they set up what they did that was different, where they talk about like, why did Southwest Airlines explode in growth, where, the competitor at the time flatlined and ended up getting, bought by United or whatever. And that was a really good book. And one of the things that I always hear that I still remember from it is talking about getting the right people on the bus. It's not an actual bus, it's your company, obviously.
And the right seats on the bus too. Yes. Yeah.
And so that was something that I always had in my head. And when I started hiring people, and actually I know you will get into, I think one of the S's is system. So let me just stop talking. I'll wait till you get to that. I could talk about my strategy with that, but it kind of plays into the book.
Perfect. So. All right. The first A in BADASS is for advice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Yeah, I was trying to think of a real estate one, but I'd say actually the best advice I ever got was from my dad, and he would often say that you create your own reality.
That can absolutely be real estate.
But it's just really profound and bigger than real estate. You know, if you're not happy, or you don't travel, or you don't like, you can travel, you can change your life, you can be happy, like you can make those changes, and like it's up to you. And that's what that meant, you know, more than just, yeah. And then sure, if you want to be a real estate investor, you can. And for maybe it was from hearing stuff like that, but I always thought when I saw these people that were investing in real estate, or like my former bosses, I never thought that they were like so exceptional that I never could get to a similar spot. I mean, they're exceptional in their own way, where they took, you know, a lot of risks and went for it when a lot of people are sitting back not doing it. But you know, I always kind of had, I thought like a good outlook where and I haven't been overconfident, where like, and I said, I baby stepped up in deals. I didn't go from a duplex to a, you know, trying to do $100 million deal somehow, you know, like
right.
You know, I went up like a couple 100,000 or now a couple million a deal, you know, where, but yeah, so no, I think that's been really, you know, profound advice that I've often thought about.
Well, I give both your parents a lot of respect, because I was a school teacher for 16 years, and thank goodness I was done before COVID hit, because I don't know how your parents even survived during COVID dealing with all that craziness. So shout out to your parents. Yes, yeah. Absolutely. What did they teach, by the way? What did they teach?
My dad, well, and also they survived COVID because they're retired, thankfully, you know, so they,
good.
Yeah, but my dad was a tech ed teacher, so he taught automotives and woodworking.
Nice.
And so he was nice enough to be put to work on some of those Madison houses for free with me. So I've ended up doing every part of real estate, because then I'd have a super handy dad. So it's like, hey, let's build this deck together or hang these doors.
I love that.
Yeah. And then my mom was a speech pathologist, so which is
very nice,
cool job. So yeah, a big impact on a lot of kids. Obviously, if they can't say an S or an X or something, then or whatever. If a stutter, she can fix it with these different drills.
I love it. Well, shout out to your parents. All right. The D in badass is for drive. What drives you to be successful?
Well, you know, it's Jeff Bezos had a quote about when he started Amazon, and I have kind of a similar mindset, and it's been a similar drive where he didn't want to feel like when he was 80, he regretted what he did. And I feel like trying to go in a way where I don't have a regret, like, oh, I could have gone for it and I didn't go for it. You know, I had a really sort of quick start in my, let's say, business career where, you know, like not a lot of people have 4 rental properties when they're 21,
right?
You know, and so also part of my drive is like, I don't want to feel like I squandered that. You know, where like I could take my like foot off the gas somewhat, but I don't want to, because then I'm like, okay, that the other guy that I know that bought some property when he was in college, he's that guy with $2 billion of property. So I'm like, I wanted to keep, you know, I want to keep going, not to like, I need to pass him or catch him or anything. And then at this point, he's not catchable, that guy, but we're you know, most likely. But that is, you know, some more just not having any regrets, where, you know, a lot of people, and it's interesting to me, a lot of people in real estate, they don't even buy any properties. They just work in it, you know? And so like, I don't want to be regretting that I didn't go for it. So don't want to be afraid to take a risk. So.
Well, very well said. And I will also add to that real estate is not pie. It's not like you have a piece of the pie, your friend has the 2 billion piece of the pie. Right. There's enough pie for everybody, especially in real estate. So excellent. Thank you for allowing me to add that. All right. The second A in badass is for aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what's a goal you're currently working on?
Yeah. So the goal I have now is to help 1,000 people become financially free through passively investing in real estate. So, you know, for so far until a couple of years ago, when I staffed up Breneman Capital and started taking on passive investors, I really just had 2 families that invested with me, and they could, is easy to do deals. You'd know you had the money ready to go, because you'd be talking to them like, how much would you want to put in? And then when you're purchasing, you know, you had your equity ready to go. But I'd have people that would be able to invest 50,000 or 100,000 or 200,000, let's say, in deals that I had. And I literally would tell them, I'm not like set up to like take your investment, where I'm just set up to work with these 2 families. Like, we don't have the infrastructure, where at that point we weren't doing, you know, monthly distributions like I was talking about. We were just doing them sort of almost at random. And So I had to make a lot of changes to the business to like accommodate this, but that's a big goal for me because it's really changed the lives of those families that I started working with, where they were already wealthy, but now they're set up in something where they really can grow long-term for them. And then it's obviously changed my life getting a piece of all these big deals. So,
and how great to provide that for people, an opportunity to grow their money for them. I think that's so great in real estate itself right there. All right. The first S in badass is systems. So now we get to hear all about these systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
Well, we have a lot of systems within the business where we've really invested heavily in technology. And so, I'd say that would be, my answer. But one thing that I would like to touch on, going back to the Jim Collins book, is the first kind of big investment I made was in the people. And so even more than the systems, like I think having the right people in the right spots is so critical. And so one of the things that I signed up for is it's called Culture Index, and it's like a personality traits survey.
Oh, wow.
And so what I was able to do is identify people who are highly detailed and analytical, for these acquisition roles, because you need to be social to, like, let's say, bring in the deals, but these also require a lot of investing is a very detailed and analytical thing. So I wanted to make sure I had those people. So it's funny, sometimes our office is a little quiet with all these super analytical, detailed people there, but it's and so that's something that if someone's in a similar spot where they're like, hey, want to go from 1 to 5 employees or something and get the right people, I couldn't recommend that enough. Culture Index.
And I love the whole bus concept too, because you have to have the right driver, you have to have the right person behind the driver, etc. So even the place, their seat on the bus is very important. So, all right. So to wrap this up, Drew, the last S in badass is success. What does success mean to you?
Time freedom.
Time freedom.
That's what's interesting. Where with my parents again, where they didn't have they weren't like multimillionaires or anything, but they had all summer off and could do whatever they wanted. It was really powerful. So I mean, that's something that I'd like to create for myself and for our investors. So I had a real taste of it 10 years ago, where we were had just bought a deal, and I knew we had invested all of our money, and I had already quit my full-time job, and over like a 9-month period, I went to like 15 different countries. So it was, I used to joke, like, back when I was cool, I did that. So now.
What? 9 months? You went to 15 different countries?
Yeah. I went to China for 3 weeks, Japan, Philippines, Hong Kong, Dubai, India.
Oh my goodness.
Singapore. It's all over. And then the rest were in Europe. So all the big ones. So.
Well, I am super jealous. Again, I want to be you when I grow up. So I appreciate you so much coming on the show today. Listeners, make sure you go over and check out other podcasts, including Breneman Blueprint. But I do want to, how do people find you if they want to invest, say, with Breneman Capital?
Just go to breneman.com. So B as in boy, RENEMAN. And then you can learn a bit more about our company there, or just click invest now in the upper right corner, sign up to be an investor. And then anybody who's signed up, it's more like just being on our list. Then when we have a deal, we send it out to our list. And then if you want to invest, you just tell us how much, and we send you the paperwork, and that's it. You just invest and sign the docs. You don't have to do any work.
And what's the minimum that you take?
50,000.
And do you have to be an accredited investor?
Yeah, you do. The SEC has a lot of requirements on who can invest in these to protect people. So it does limit who can invest in it. And if you want to see what an accredited investor is, we have a definition on our website, or you can just Google it. But it does, require like a solid income and net worth. So.
Got it. Well, Drew, thank you so much. I love geeking out over this stuff, and I got some great nuggets from you today. So I do truly appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here, Drew.
Thanks for having me. It's fun.
Yay. And that is all. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.